let's switch over. Class Modo. Hello, class. Hello. We will be starting the stream. And as always, we'll start every stream with homework review. This time the homework will not take 1.5 hours to get through. It took an hour to get through all of the homework. Last time, I'll try to keep it down to at least 15 minutes at most. I meant to figure out how to put a timer function down on the stream, but I kind of forgot in the shuffle of doing other things. So we'll just get back to it another time. Let's look in at the homework that was sent in. We will start with Latverian Badger, latverianb.bisky.social. Let's take a look at the animal practice. So, Latverian B, I know you are in chat right now. Tell me about your process. Tell me how you felt doing this. He says, I honestly struggled. Give me more. People also did. There at least one other person who has done a shark tua. Started with the horizon line. Good. And you put out the orthogonals to establish perspective. Good. So that's always a good starting point for things like this. Then you pretty much try to lay down the shapes in perspective. Good, good, good. And I notice all of these are traveling towards the 1 point perspective with reference to the photo. So, in the photos you picked, do you think it was mostly 1 point perspective? Or could you have pushed it to include 2 point perspective? Curious. Just curious. And for VOD viewers, there's a delay between me saying anything, and then chat hearing it, and then of course chat then has to reply. I'm just filling up that awkward little blank space. It was hard to find, but I did find a close-up of a tortoise shot that felt like 3 or 4 point perspective. Was tempted but didn't go for it in the end. And that's okay. Challenge yourself within the bounds of what you can do. If you find that it's just a little too tough for you right this instant, that's okay. But do be pushing yourself more and more. If I do more art streams, I might have a dedicated critique corner, just to talk about anything anyone has sent in to me, or whatever. But in the meantime, let's take a proper look at what you've done. So we've got a bunch of 1 point perspective animals, which is not a bad thing. Again, I like all of your orthogonals. Rather, all the lines on the animals are mostly paying attention to the vanishing point. We see a few lines that are going a little bit off, and I can tell this is where the eyeballing is going on. And there's not a wrong thing with eyeballing, because realistically, you're not busting out a ruler every time you're doing something. I don't really want you to ask yourself with figuring out a ruler, but I do want you to train your eye a little bit more, or just train your hands. See, what I'm doing, I was connecting a point, I was being all wobbly. I haven't warmed up today. So I haven't done any sort of proper ghosting to figure out this line. And what I recommend doing with your further studies in the future, for any other homework assignments, feel free to be as messy as you need. Be as messy as you need to set things up, and then just draw a lot darker. As long as you're just drawing lightly to establish your setup, you'll be fine. Just drawing a little bit darker for the final version. So, excuse me. I like the shapes that you picked out. Good to see this boxy shape for the shape of the shell. I like this curve here, and I like that it's cut off like that over there. I would have liked to see, it's okay as well, when you're setting things up, you don't need to raw dog a shape. I shouldn't say raw dog. I think people understand what that means, but it still sounds like an innuendo to me. But again, you're free to do a little bit of setup, as what I encourage doing. Draw lightly. I would like to see some more of the construction that goes on behind the scenes of your drawing. I say behind the scenes. It isn't really like it's I'm not gonna read chat about what they had to say about raw dogging. But a little more construction behind what you do would be well appreciated. I think it's a good idea to show me. It's like math. Show me your work. Show me what goes into the process here. Giving me the perspective, or rather the horizon line, and your orthogonals to figure out where the vanishing point is. Good, I love it. But this shape here of the body, of this loaf right here, I would have liked to see what lies behind the head. What sort of thought processes go on in these shapes that are overlapping each other that I just can't see. So try to draw a little bit lighter so that I'm allowed to see the construction behind these things. So these are nice shapes. Try and think with a little bit more dimension to them. Because the thing with spheres, and when we're not shading our work, it's really hard to tell where the beginning and end of a sphere is. Like, I can tell this is lying in front of your oval shape right here, but these curves, we don't have any real sorry. Oops, dropped my pen. My pen just so easily falls out of my hand. I apologize. I forgot the word for showing dimension through something like this. The contours, because I didn't ask you to draw contours for this assignment. I wanted people to think a little more geometrically through it. My fault for not saying that, but would have liked to see a little bit more of this, because doing things with a little more geometry, it helps you register what goes into things. Where is the end point behind what you are doing? Even if you can't necessarily even if you think this can't possibly be a box, everything is a box. Everything is a box. So just to keep that in mind. Some things can be circles. Some things can be spheres. Joints, perfectly fine to draw them as spheres. Just keep that in mind. Good to imagine things just a little bit more geometrically, or apply contour. If you really, really want to sell the three-dimensionality of what you've done. So let's see at the last one. Shark. Good. 1 point perspective for the shark. And again, just would have liked to see this. Something I did not point out in the last stream. One of the homework submissions I received and was able to look at, they did something interesting with their... I'm not naming them. They're here in chat, but I'm not going to name them. They did something very interesting with their perspective, where in order to solve exactly how do you draw a good circle in perspective, they drew an X. They drew from their orthogonals, they drew an X across there, and then connected each of these 4 points together. And it's a little more, in a nicer way than that, but it's one of those ways you can really draw a nice circle. Or at least teach yourself to draw a nice circle. Going off of what we saw last week, when you do these 4 points and you just ghost around to figure out how to draw a good circle. I did it wrong. But it's something you can do as well. So, nice shaping. Nice shaping. I like this. And I like this. I like this barrel shape. It's fun. And yes, this fin, it is bending. It betrays perspective. And that's okay, because perspective is a lie. Perspective is a false reality we just do to make things make sense in drawings. Which is all that to say, this is okay. we can't, you know, always find depth where there isn't because a fin is like something really, really flat. Shocker from Librarian B. I know. Perspective is a lie. We're gonna watch a video at the end of the stream, where that idea gets extrapolated a bit more on. But for now, I like this. This works. This is fine. I like that you noticed there were a lot of segments to a shark. You think a shark is just like a bullet, you know? But no, sharks have spines. Sharks wiggle. Those tails, those are alive, baby. Those are alive. So you paid good attention to that. I like that. Another chatter says that's how you did mine. Good. Good. Love to see that. So, these aren't bad. Try to challenge yourself just a bit more to see if you can find, or rather if you can see more perspective beyond what one point perspective has to offer you. Think about it a bit. So, let's head on to the next one. Here's your bean studies! And you included a bit more. You included a bit more with anatomy. I appreciate that. I really do. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't the assignment to draw more anatomy, though. And I'm not harping you for that. Maybe you did want to just observe a bit more. In fact, you know, relative to what we're going to go over today, this is a good idea. But I wanted you to be able to focus a bit more on just the plain oval, the plain overlap between two circles. Sorry, these aren't circles, just between two ovals. And I notice one of the issues that we have here, you're drawing the hip section too small. And even if we can say this was in perspective, this is being squished. So we don't want that. You might think, but I'm doing it based on how the hips look. The hips are supposed to be smaller than the rib cage. This is true. But the bean accounts for the midsection as well. So we can't just draw the torso bean, the upper body bean, the rib bean, as just straight up longer than the hip bean, because that's just not how it works. It doesn't stack on top of each other, like squishing each other. The way this exercise operates is by overlapping the two sections together. But as far as the study itself goes, I like that you're really, really looking for how these two parts squish over each other. I like this, and I like this. You noticed where the curve is. I liked seeing the front line, and I can tell that the pole of the bean is right there. I like seeing this. This is good. This is a bean that was mostly stretched out. So naturally, there isn't much to squish. And it happens. It happens with these photos that you pick. Rather that you come upon. You're going to find a lot of that. So, hard for me to critique when I don't have, the exact photo available. But be careful with doing something like this, where you have two overlapping lines like that, with a bean that appears to be more head-on. Because when you do something like this, I gave a critique to another person. This one's like a twist. Okay, all right. So if you're doing a twist, it's very, very important to remember. We can't have something like this. Because this, when you have something stacked like this, that means this is definitively above this part. When we have a twist, that means one of these has to be going behind the other. So this part, this is where the twist occurs. So the front, so in this case, the upper section is being, going turning this way, while the lower section is turning this way. So we can't have this going on, because that creates overlap. Instead, I'm going to presume that the lower bean is facing this way, so it's probably turning this way, which means maybe this sits in front, and this goes a bit more like this, which might look a little uncomfortable. But again, with a bean, we're not necessarily drawing anything anatomically correct. I'm just challenging you to see how the torso moves, without necessarily including everything else. The bean is just an exaggerated representation of how the torso moves. But as for everything else, I like this. Like this, you paid attention to that. You paid attention to the rhythm in how these things move. Maybe the squish could be slightly smaller. Maybe something closer to that. It happens. I'm not being a stickler about that. Again, exercise. I shouldn't be too crazy about this one. But you're onto something here. Just remember, if you ever do more bean studies, if you ever do more to figure out how it works, don't squish your bean short. Make sure they're about the same, unless you're looking at things in perspective. And while I might be able to sell that this might be in perspective, try to keep things, if they're not, a little bit more ovular, as opposed to like this, where it seems to be going away. And same for here. It seems to have turned on its side rather than stayed in perspective. But this is good work. I like how this is laid out. We're paying attention. When there is a bump, there's always a smooth. There's always a curve to accompany it. And you figured that out. So, good work. Let's go on to the next person. Too programmed to think of the lower bean as just the stomach. That's a problem. It's not. Because your upper body, we'll emphasize this one more time. The upper body consists of your hips as well. Okay, well, maybe that's not exactly correct. But we're seeing the torso. We're seeing the whole torso. The whole torso involves the hips. We got to see how the whole entire torso moves. A squish. The stomach is involved there. Don't get it wrong. We do see that in there. But gotta remember that. Variant B says, my construction always involves the circle as the belly and another structure to be the hips below, like a triangle. That's a trap. Yeah, for this, I'm asking you to rewire your brain a little bit, which is tough if you've been drawing for a while and you already have a set system involved. So the way, I know how Latverian B draws. He does something like this in order to draw his work, and that's not a bad thing. If you have your own system at play, that's fine, but we're gonna try and overwrite how some of that works, just so you can have a bit better of a base understanding. So let's move on to our Twitter submission from user Emotions Last Mid. Squishy Pal is, I don't know if Squishy Pal is currently in chat, but let's discuss Squishy Pal's beans. I like these. Good attention paid to squish. Didn't go too crazy about making sure, just showing more landmarks in the body, implying too much of the body rather. And I like that you're paying attention to where would the rib be? Where would the ribs be? Where would the hips be? You didn't have to take that step, but it's very interesting that you did. I appreciate it. Good squish. Good sort of stretch. It's a big lean. It's a big lean, which is good. I like to see that. Same here. Glad that you did a forward, a lean. Same here. Good tilt. I can see the motion in there. Remember, not everyone gets like a super in-depth critique. If you're doing well, you're doing well. And it's hard to say otherwise. Was there actually more to this? No. All right. We're gonna... There we go. Got everything in view. I appreciate this. I appreciate... Is this part of the animals? That actually explains it. On the next 2 pages, there are... birds. I thought this was a figure drawing at first, and I was like, oh, well, that's a good study. But we're not there yet. It's Eeyore. Interesting. But for this one, so because we see there's some squish in the back, just remember we're studying things, so they don't gotta be exact. There is a bit more of just like this straight curve. Maybe in actuality, it is a little pinched in the stomach, and that's okay. But I like to see that you're paying attention to the gesture, to the motion of what is there. But you basically got it. I want to make that clear. When we're doing gesture drawing, we're not necessarily super concerned that there is a pinch in the stomach, but rather that there is a motion, that the torso is leaning backwards that way. But you captured the perspective correctly with this contour. I like that. Good squish. Good notice of where the front line is. And I like this. It's a good twist. Good twist. Right there. Nice attention to tension. Tension and pinching. So good work. Good work. Very good work. Excellent. All around. Now let's take a look at your animals. Squishy Pal is not currently in chat with us, fortunately, so I can't quite tell what this is. If there was more of a horizon line, I might have been able to figure out what was going on here. I think what happened... Oh, there it is. Oh, that's what that line is. It's okay. You didn't really need all that space. Just to tell me it's all going back there. I trust a little bit that it's there. It might have been just for cleanup sake. But the orthogonals made you think it was scribbled out. For a moment I thought so too. But I'm just silly and I didn't look at this image closely enough the first time around. Good work. I like that each of these shapes, even though they're spherical, you're clearly tracking it with all of your orthogonals going towards the back. But as I said with Ladvarian B, and my fault again for not really saying it, a few more contours helps spherical shapes stand out, or just like showing me a little bit of the under. Show me that you're drawing a cylinder. Show me the insides. Show me the parts that are inside of there. Add a bit more geometry to what you're drawing so that it appears a little more in perspective. So that it feels a little more solid, rather. This is for your sake, rather, not mine. To think about the world a little bit more mechanically. Because as much as we love natural shapes, you don't achieve a natural shape without seeing what is built underneath it. And I probably don't need to tell you that if you're friends with a paleontologist. But so it goes. Man, pretty all right. I just wish I could tell what exactly this is. But let's take a look at the other one. Here we go. A harpy eagle. Ooh, that's interesting. I love this. Love this. This is the geometry I'm talking about. I want to see that you're making cylinders. I want to see that you're making boxes. And I want to see that they're all going to the vanishing point. I don't need to freehand the vanishing point. I'm on a digital program. I can hold shift. I can create a ruler at my fingertips. But these are good. If your picture showed one foot more in front of the other, so it goes. But I like this. Like that. Just a little bit more on on the shapes. Would have appreciated that. This hump right here in the body, not sure what creates it. I want to be able to see what sort of shape forms this torso. Same for back here. It's kind of just a thing. I'm not sure what I'm looking at. Chatter says, definitely flubbed at making your shapes properly in perspective. Practice it. Practice, practice, practice. Take what I'm saying here, apply it to your studies. So, this is nice. Just a little bit more geometry. Geometry is always the name of the game with what I want to see. Especially when it comes to your own practices. Like I said, we got to see how the world breaks down into nothing but pure shapes in perspective. And this is being seen from the top. So we're not seeing the bottom plane there. Either way, it's a good job. You did a good job on this. I missed the second image. I missed the second animal. Drew an owl. In 2-point perspective. Chatter say repetition is key. Truing, spit facts, my friend. So, owl, like this. Actually, it might be 3-point perspective, I don't know. Or really, really deep 2-point perspective. Either way, I respect the hustle of figuring it out. No shade to anyone who didn't do 2 or 3-point perspective. But this is good. I like this. This is a good shape. I just sort of tell there's a box going on there. Yeah, just show me the geometry. Show me more of the geometry. I like this though. I can tell what you were thinking as you were making this. Triangles overlap each other, and I want to see how these overlap. Make it lighter. Learn how to control your hand so that you're not just doing that, but you're drawing really, really light. My normal lining pen is not excellent at demonstrating what's the word? Line weight, but consider that a bit more as you draw more. This is all right. This is all right. Need to see more geometry. I'm gonna be a stickler for geometry as we move into the next few things that we do, especially next week. We'll be discussing how to build a human body out of shapes then. That's in the future though. And it might be a bit much for, progressing in 3 weeks. But we'll see how you feel after we do some more figure studies. So that's it for all of the homework that was sent in. I tried not to spend too much time on that. I think we started stream about at 30 minutes ago. So I think that's 15 each. I'm going to take a quick second to do a home chore, and then we'll be back to discuss today's topic, the 7.5 head proportion. More on that later. I'll be right back. No hooky. No hooky for you. Hello. I'm back. So like I said, we'll be heading into our next topic of discussion. That will be the 7.5 head proportion. So let me look up something to bring on to stream. So the thing about human proportion, it varies. Let's make a new document for this all. Human proportion varies. You could be, let me make a quick little figure for everyone. What am I doing? There is a proportion image, a really old one that exemplifies what I'm about to talk about. It's out there somewhere. It's from the dreaded Loomis video. Andrew Loomis. And his concept of how human bodies work. So, let's talk about this a bit. Here we see, and make sure this shows up well on stream. I'm gonna bring this up a little bit over because I don't like to look at the end of the canvas. But in an ideal world, not even an ideal world, this is the idealized version of the body that we look towards when trying to draw ideal figures. This is the baseline from which we can understand drawing proportion. Scholars, ancient Greeks figured out long time ago, you can break the human body down into being about 7.5 heads tall, or within the range of 6 to 8 heads tall. This is the general range by which you can tell how tall or how proportionate you can make a body. For the sake of this workshop, we'll be focusing on 7.5 heads. We will not be talking about the 8... almost dropped my tablet. Pen. We'll not be talking about this. We will not be covering this. We will absolutely not be talking about this, because once you understand this, that is how you learn to draw all of the rest. So, to start with, we are going to look at another Proco video. We're going to pay attention to what he says, and then we'll draw along with it afterwards. So, we're going to watch through once, and then I'm going to draw along with it, and you should draw along with it then as well, to figure out how to draw proportions, and that way you keep your own guide to yourself. So, let me get the video. We're gonna watch 2 videos back to back. Well, I say that, but we're gonna start. We're gonna start with one video and then go on to the other, just as something to keep in mind afterwards. So, open. Playing Cocomelon in class to placate the students. Anyway, let's look at this in full. We won't look at this in full because my setup will block it. So instead, I'm just gonna hit F12. Not F12. We're gonna hit F11. This is good enough.
Have a guide. Something to keep your... Hey, my name is Stan Prokopenko. Welcome to Proco. Studying the average human proportions is a very common practice among artists. And even though everybody's proportions are slightly different, it's still very helpful to have a guide. Something to keep your drawings from looking wrong. Knowing the average proportions gives you something to measure from. Dr. Paul Richet, a pioneer in human anatomy, says that there are 2 reasons why we study human proportions. The first is we try to find harmony, a reason why we are the way we are. The Greeks tried to find that perfect model of beauty. The second reason is we want a method to help us during the drawing process. We want an easy way to make our figure drawings proportionately accurate and a guide to fall back on when our drawings feel wrong.
This is available for sale, by the way. There is a link to a Gumroad page in which you can buy it on. Currently on. True. Thank you for reminding me to change the currently on. We are currently on proportions. But this whole poster is available. I have it downloaded. I'll put it on screen just to compare for when we start drawing this whole thing ourselves. And then I will provide a link to download it yourself if you so wish.
These guides are useful when we observe a model, but especially when we draw from imagination. When familiar with a system, we can choose to deviate from it in whichever way we want.
Another important thing to note. You just got to learn the rules to break them. If you want to just draw people who are like 5 heads tall, who are 8 heads tall, have like super gangly proportions, if that's what you really, really want to do afterwards, do something really cartoony, that's fine. But again, this workshop, it asks you to understand how proportion works, so that we can understand just how the human body works. We got to understand how life works before we start really creating from imagination. Which might sound a little bit weird, but trust me. If we're trying to draw people, we got to look at people, really scrutinize them. If my VTuber model had more than just these 2 frames, I'd be looking right at you. Anyway, moving on.
After all, we are artists.
We're artists!
Proper proportions lie not in pages of statistics, nor in the dogma of scientists, but in the mind of the individual artist. Proportions are entirely his responsibility, his decision. Robert Beverly Hale.
The pitfalls. The most obvious drawback of any proportion system is that it works only when the figure is not foreshortened.
Big thing to what we're going to be discussing. Your homework later will be only drawing with these type of models. For your homework, only pick out photos of mostly just standing there. No freaky proportions. But this is mainly where we're going to be doing things. So just keep that in mind.
These systems work great when a person is standing up straight, but not so well in other poses.
Drawing the ideal average results in a drawing without character. Also, the figure must be eye level, upright, and rigid. Bending of the body changes the proportions visually, but not actually. George Bridgman.
So in the end, it's just a guide. It won't solve all our problems. We have to combine it with careful observation and frequent study from live models. Doing so will help you visualize the proportions of the masses in 3D, to sense when a body part is too large or small in relation to the whole. It also helps to study perspective and construction, to develop the ability to turn the forms while retaining the dimensions.
This is why I have you all spend these 2 weeks. I can't just call someone freaky, Professor. What did I do? But this is why I've had you study perspective a bit, and try to put it into practical application using animals first. Because if I try to get you right into a person, that's too much. An animal we don't have any sense of proportion for animals. Or rather, they're just simpler to break down without jumping straight into how people look, and you're not too bugged about how to start breaking down people. You can use much simpler shapes to discern how an animal looks. Look at the certain kinds of seals, for example. But back to the video.
With that said, let's take a look at a few of the most commonly used systems of proportion. Paul Richet's method. Dr. Paul Richet's artistic anatomy presents a scientific system for an average European male as measured by anthropologists. He uses the height of the head as 1 unit and says that the average person is 7.5 heads tall. The head and torso together make up 4 units. The leg from the top of the femur to the ground is another 4 units. The top and bottom overlap by half a unit, creating a total of 7.5. The halfway point is at about the pubic bone. When the arms are extended to the side, the length between the fingertips is just a smidgen longer than the height, about 4% longer. It's an insignificant amount, so for practical purposes, we can just consider them equal. From the chin down 1 head unit are the nipples. The next unit down is at the navel, which is the top of the glutes in the back. The next head unit down is at the bottom of the glutes and the crotch in the front. Another useful measurement in the back is 1 head length from the 7th cervical vertebra to the bottom of the scapula, and 2 units to the pieces. Similarly, from the acromion process down to the acis measures 2 head units. The same for the width of the shoulders, including the deltoids.
The other video we're going to go over talks about these landmarks of the body. I'm not requiring you to draw them yet. You might be mentioning these, and these might be like big boy terms that are just flying over your head. It's okay. It's okay. We'll get to them.
So this section of the body fits into a nice square. However, on a female, the shoulders are narrower, about 1 2/3 head heights.
And another thing about just these idealistic proportions, they're idealized. Yes, maybe the ideal / average female skeleton looks like this, and maybe the ideal average male skeleton looks like that, but you can change things. You can change these around. People are built differently. We're looking at skeletal structures. Skeletal structures will still vary, but this is what we all kind of look like on the inside. So let's keep that in mind.
On a female, there is 1.5 heads between the 2 greater trochanters. The hips on a male are slightly narrower. The femur measures 2 head units. Or in the back, you can remember that from the bottom of the glutes to the bottom of the femur is 1.5 units. The length of the lower leg, including the foot, is also 2 head units. The middle of these 4 head units is at the connection of the femur and the tibia. Remember that when the leg is extended, this connection is at the bottom of the patella. When the leg flexes, it gets more complicated. So study the bony protrusions of the knee area so that you can identify the bottom of the femur and the top of the tibia. Richer points out that the distance from the acis to the middle of the patella is equal to the distance from the patella to the ground. And the foot is a bit longer than the head. Finally, let's move on to the arms. The length of the arm from the armpit is 3 head units. The top point is somewhere below the shoulder joint. The second one is above the olecranon, and the third above the wrist. Because these units don't align well with the anatomy of the arm, Richer prefers another method. From the acromion to the epicondyles is equal to the epicondyles to the knuckles. Alrighty, that's the first proportion system I'll be covering. In the next video, I'll go over Robert Beverly Hale's system, based on the cranial mass instead of the height of the head.
And that's what we'll be going over on Thursday. But for now, I want us to figure out more about this method, where we're just viewing these skeletons head on, so that we can gain just a greater understanding of how to use. That's a different thing.
Alrighty, that's the equal to the.
So that we can understand how to use this system first. And then you get to decide how to use them both, when to use them both. And as time goes on, the more you use these systems, the more they become second nature. And the more helpful, not more helpful, but the more natural they'll become to you, so that you don't really need to keep doing it. I know for a fact, I grew out of doing it. Then I forgot some details about what to do. So it's good to revisit these videos from time to time, even if you're an experienced artist. So I'll put the second video on. I said we'd work along this. We draw one as well. I just want to put this one on as well, because I think it'll be helpful for everyone, just to understand some of that terminology and what you're doing when you're drawing this sort of stuff. So
before we move on to applying structure and proportion to our figure drawings, we need to learn the landmarks of the body.
Chat says forehead seem to be the standard for each part of the body. Somewhat! It's funny that your wingspan is about as long as your whole torso. As long as
The
your whole
early
body.
stages of a figure drawing usually involve careful measuring and identifying the gesture. To help us with this, the human body is filled with landmarks that give us clues to the gesture and points from which to measure the proportions. These points are bony areas that show at the surface. Bones are good landmarks because they don't change much between different body types. The skeleton structure of a thin, muscular, and overweight person stays roughly the same.
No such thing as a big bone person. On the inside, there's a skeleton. He's waiting to come out. Or she, or they, IDK.
With some variation, of course. It's the muscle and fat tissue that shows the most dramatic changes. As I point out the landmarks, try to identify them on your own body. Or if you're watching this with a friend, touch the bony landmarks on your friend's body.
That's right. Get naked.
Awkward. We can use fleshy points like the belly button and nipples to measure distances and angles, while remembering that these points will vary a lot more between body types. So let's go over all these landmarks. Center line of the front. Identifying the core gesture of the torso requires finding the landmarks along the center of the body. At the top, we start with the pit of the neck between the clavicles. You'll see a little indentation right above the manubrium. Work our way down to the bottom of the sternum, which combined with the manubrium looks like a necktie. Below that is the belly button, and finally, the pubic bone. These points can be connected with a C or S curve. This usually influences the gesture of the rest of the pose.
Main reason I want to show this video now, we'll be doing real gesture drawing later, after we've established our proportion system, once you've gotten a little bit going. But I figure showing them both next to each other helps. It'll help make you think a little bit later on. Just moving on.
Center line of the back. In the back, identifying the center line is much simpler. The length of the spine gives you the shape of the center line, from the top of the neck down to the tailbone. It's a common misconception that each vertebra has the same range of motion and can be connected with a simple curve.
Untrue.
While you can and should do this to establish the gesture, it's not accurate to keep it that way during the structure stage and when adding the anatomy. The three sections of the spine have different limits to their rotation, flexion, extension, and lateral motion.
So just once again, it's fine to represent the spine as one solid line when you're doing gesture, when you're finding the motion. You can't do that when you're adding real structure. So
landmarks of the front. Next, I can use the landmarks across the body to identify the twisting and curving of the torso. Reaching from the back are the bony protrusions of the acromion process, which tells you the angle of the shoulders. You can feel the bony area on your shoulder between the deltoid and trapezius. Connecting the points of the acromion are the clavicles, shaped like bicycle handlebars. When finding the points across the shoulders, keep in mind that these points can also move independently from the ribcage. If someone raises one shoulder, the clavicle will rotate from the pit of the neck, changing the angle of the shoulders while keeping the same angle of the ribcage. The front corners of the iliac crest tell you the angle of the pelvis. These points are called the anterior superior iliac spine, or ASIS for short. As you'll see next week, these points are great for identifying the box of the hips. The other points that I frequently use on the front torso are the armpits. I look for the distance from the top of the shoulders and the width of the arms compared to the width of the torso.
small little thing. I notice this in a lot of drawings. Sometimes I'm guilty of this as well. Gotta give your armpits a little more length from your armpit to the shoulder. There just has to be more length. Chest should not come up to here. Come down here. Because this is all shoulder space. This is all shoulder segment. The shoulder connects to the torso. This is a whole separate thing. Gotta leave room for that.
Lateral landmarks of the back. The back of the body also has some landmarks we can use to find the angles, although some can be trickier to find on softer or overweight body types. An average or muscular back has a lot of bumps and is always a challenge for artists. To create order out of all that chaos, the bony landmarks of the scapula are very helpful. First, the spine of the scapula is this diagonal ridge from the acromion process to this corner called the triangular expansion. Like the clavicles in the front, these also resemble handlebars. From the corner,
Sorry, I need to interrupt for a second. I have a hilarious joke, twitch.tv/rivwriter.
the ridge
Zoolander. End of joke.
front, these also resemble handlebars. From the corner, the ridge takes a sharp turn downward along the medial edge. These edges are not covered by muscles, so you'll see hints of them on the surface. The seventh cervical vertebra is another commonly used landmark. Moving down to the hip region, we have a major landmark at the sacrum, a triangular shape that connects the tailbone and the two dimples at the posterior superior iliac spine, or PCIS, or PCIS, or CIS. The limbs. In the arms and legs, the landmarks are basically the joints. On the sides of the elbow are the epicondyles of the humerus. When the arm is extended, these 3 points are aligned in a straight line. When the elbow is bent, the olecranon, a fancy word for tip of the elbow, moves down and forms a triangle.
Like I said, triangle. Building block of the body.
Follow the ulna down the arm to the wrist. At the wrist, the radius and ulna create a flat top and bottom plane that are great for showing the rotation of the wrist. The knee is very complex, so I'll go over it in a lot more detail during the anatomy series. But to try to simplify it, I remember that there are 7 bumps. 2 for the condyles of the femur and 2 more for the condyles of the tibia. A little one on the side at the head of the fibula, 1 bump for the patella, and another below it caused by the combination of the tibia, a ligament, and a fat pad.
A lot of words to figure out just what goes into a knee. The knee is dummy complex. Just for the sake of like seeing motion, seeing landmarks, just keep that stuff in mind. If you're trying to find some sort of gesture or some sort of like, a landmark.
When the knee bends, the tendon will pull the kneecap down and under the femur. The curve of the tibia is very prominent and an important part of the gesture of the leg. At the ankle, the tibia and fibula form a wrench shape that hugs the foot. The angle between them goes downward towards the outside. And finally, the great trochanter, a bony protrusion on the side of the hip. All the muscles of the gluteus wrap around it like a donut. Yeah, I made this reference just so I could eat a donut.
I want a donut.
So those are all the landmarks. The best way to learn them is to draw from life or from a photograph and try to identify them. Use them.
Right. So, we're not doing this yet. We might revisit landmarks of the body in greater depth in the coming weeks. But for now, let's head back over here. Get out your drawing materials. I want you to draw along with all of us figuring out exactly how to draw the skeletal structure. So I will shrink the... Oops. That's changing the boundaries. That's not shrinking the window. Hold on. Shrinking the window. We're gonna make it full screen now because we can. Shinky. It went back to homework review, says chat. Wrong. We're doing. I'm gonna hit Control Z. Oh, sorry. You meant on the overlay. Sorry, I thought you meant like I switched back to doing homework review. I was like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. That's crazy. So anyway, we're doing 7.5 head proportion. I got the incorrect buzzer back. That's fine. You're right. So, in order to do this, take out your drawing materials of choice, and we'll just draw a center line all of the way down. That's a bad center line. Use a shape tool if you really want. Use a use a ruler if you so desire. But we're going to be drawing along this line. It can be a little off. That's okay. But we'll just draw just an oval. We'll use an oval to start with, to figure out how to keep things in relative proportion. So, one way you can make sure that you're drawing in roughly the same proportion, if you're drawing basically on traditional media, use the tip of your pencil. I want you to do it like they do in fancy art videos. Hold your pen up, hold your pencil up, and sight measure. Don't do it up there. Do it like right here. Sight measure using the tip of your pencil to your thumb, and figure out like from about what angle are you drawing. Will this size remain consistent? That's the other important part here. You have to keep a consistent like distance away from your drawing in order to make sure this sight reading will remain consistent all of the way down. So keep that in mind. That's how you keep things proportionate. In this case, we will simply copy paste. In this case, I can get away with copy pasting. So we'll paste one, we'll head down, we'll move this down, and from here, we will draw. Let's progress the
and
video.
says that the average person is 7.5 heads tall. The head and torso together make up 4 units.
Let's count it down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Average size of the body. So as we can see, do we?
The leg from the top of the femur to the.
All right. Well, let's start with head lengths. Let's just start with the head lengths. We'll go along with the video. We'll move our head, move it down about halfway. Once again, if you're doing this traditionally, use the sight method to try and keep these in rough proportions. Or you can just literally measure it directly against your pencil. Lay your pencil flat. Maybe do it from the tip of where you sharpened it, and try to keep that rough size in mind. Do what you can to keep it to scale. And so from the body to the crotch, to the hips, we'll move our head down over halfway down. I'm going to these a little bit up. And then this is another 4.
Ground is another 4 units. The top and bottom overlap by half a unit, creating a total of 7.5. The halfway point is at about the pubic bone. When the arms are extended to the side, the length between the fingertips is just a smidgen longer than the height, about 4% longer. It's an insignificant amount, so for practical purposes, we can just consider them equal. From the chin down 1 head unit are the nipples.
All right, I was hoping that I was trying to remember if it discussed exactly where the neck is in relation to that, but we can see from the video roughly about 1/3 down from your 1 head length. That's where the shoulders are. Our shoulders are about well, that's a little awkward to say actually, but here's roughly the top of your pelvis. Here's the bottom of your pelvis, and there's your middle. Roughly the middle. Keep going just a little bit longer.
The next unit down is at the navel, which is the top of the glutes in the back. The next head unit down is at the bottom of the next head unit down.
We're going backwards
which
just a
is
little bit
top
to
of the
make sure
unit down.
this tracks. So this aligns roughly with the nipples. Okay, there's that. Let's see if this doesn't.
Navel.
All right, that's our third head unit. Third head unit down. This is the roughly where the crotch begins. Very, very roughly. Then halfway through the third head unit, that's where the ribs are. Just from observing the video, maybe slightly less than that, but you can do what you will to figure that out. Let's progress along.
Which is the top of the glutes in the back.
And we'll be doing the back later.
The next head unit down is at the bottom of the glutes and the crotch in the front. Another useful measurement in the back is one head length from the seventh cervical. From the chromium process down to the acis measures 2 head units.
Here we go.
Down to the 8 units to the pieces. Similarly, from the chromium process down to the acis measures 2 head units.
So if you wanted another little bit there, we'll come back to that actually. We'll come back to that. We'll just continue on with how some of these proportions are meant to line out. So we'll just draw a box for now. We'll draw a simple box. We're drawing a male skeleton for starters. And I'm surprised this actually doesn't cover how wide the body, certain the torso and the hips are. Let me pull up the video. Sorry, not the video. The poster I downloaded on purpose. Proco proportions poster. It's in the workshop folder. My bad. So let's take a look at this. And we'll observe that the head length on a male skeleton, again, it's probably further along in the video and I didn't wait for that. If you were wit blind, you'd be lost as hell on this. Yeah, well, we gotta... That's why we're doing this now. Our shoulder span is about 2 heads wide on a male skeleton. So keep that in mind. There's our center line. We'll do another one right there. Keeping that in mind. All right. Let's just do a slightly inward box, and this one more of a straight box. This will represent the rib cage and our hips. Could do a little circle out here. This will represent the acromion process. Is that what he's called it? Acromion. And now we'll draw our arm length. The arm length, again, it's roughly from here, 3 head lengths tall. So let's get this over here. Oops. Ooh, that's not supposed to be all there. Apologies. That was supposed to be on this one. Sorry, just making sure everything's about where it should be. We'll take our... What? Oh, there's just a little stroke left on the end there. Take this. This is the top of the head. We'll measure it. 1, 2, 3. And that's not how far out you should do it, but you can use this to measure exactly where things go. We'll look at this again. See that? Again, from here to here to about here, then to about here. This would be the wrist. This would be the elbow. This would be the shoulder. Use that as your rough understanding of where these things go. So 1 head length is about the length of your forearm. 1 head length is about your, did I say forearm? Upper arm. Then this is your forearm. And then this is your hand. This includes the fingertips. So your palm would be about half of that length. and your fingers would be the rest of that length. And then your thumb sits on the outside. And we do that for the other side as well. Measure another head unit length. I'm not just copy pasting it over because that would be unfair for everyone who can't do that. But I'll continue to copy paste all these heads. But I will just redraw it from scratch as well. Continue to redraw it from scratch. Do I need to rotate that a bit more? Maybe for a more natural scale. We'll do that. We'll do that. And we'll do that. Then we'll draw it somewhat following where these things line up. And keep in mind, where I drew this tippy top of the head, that's not like meeting the shoulder joint entirely. It's somewhere around here. Bad time to be saying don't be too exact. You don't have to worry about being too terribly exact. But just remember this rough area. It's not necessarily like the line, the very tip top there. Things will always vary anyway. So again, upper arm length, about one head. Forearm length, about one head. Your palm length, about half of a head. And your fingertips go to the end there. And as we saw in the video, your fingertips slightly outreach the length of the heads. But it's okay. It's okay. We'll just pretend in a perfect world that's how it works. So we'll observe this again. When you look at it from this way, that's how that measures out. This, in fact, lines up roughly with the armpits again. And from here, I might have been measuring this wrong, actually. If you're running astray from me, I apologize. Because we weren't drawing these arms all of the way down. But they don't have to be a straight line either. They don't have to be a straight line. I don't believe this uses a head length. This just uses a rough estimate of how these things go. Generally speaking, your upper arm is one length, and then your forearm, it's actually it looks a little bit shoulder, but the length of the upper arm is equal to some of the forearm, and basically all the way down to your wrist. So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. And so those line up. So we've got this box for our hips. Then we'll just do a joint. The legs. Okay, we're all on the same page here. Do a little joint here. Add halfway down, these two lengths down. We'll draw again. And then, yes, this includes the ankles. So at about 2/3 down, I believe that's roughly where an ankle would be. Maybe. So just slightly 2/3 down. And this is where your foot lies. Not the most, not the smartest little setup there ever, but we'll just, we'll send this over. Make another 4 head length measurement. Bring this down. In fact, we'll move these over. Oops. Just like that. Oh, okay, that was included. That's strange. Move these over just a little bit so that we can see where that joint lines up. And keeping these is hard. Keeping these consistent is hard. You might not always get it, but let's take a look at these without all these dang heads. Here we got the idealized 7.5 head figure. These are the proportions by which you can work your figures with. You can measure how that looks. Use rectangles, use boxes or cylinders, depending on what is most appropriate for figure. In this case, I'm just gonna do that. It's cones all the way down, baby. So there's our idealized 7-head figure. Were you supposed to do the ovals on a different layer? It'd help, but if you're still doing it all on one thing, it's okay, because this is just a study. I want you to be able to see where everything is. If that's what you do, this is just for cleaning up. I'm doing this for cleaning up purposes. I'm doing this for cleaning up purposes. This is so we understand. We're all roughly on the same page for 7.5 heads. Helps make sense, like those neck muscles. Yes, the upper body is not a block. We have a trapezius. We gotta remember these sort of things. So let's say that in review. Let's put all these heads back on. So on a male skeleton, on an idealized male skeleton, we see that, and I didn't even look at the hip length. We'll see that the hips on a male skeleton are about 1.5 heads long. I neglected to mention that. I apologize. Let's see if the rough idea that I put in about lines up. Pretty dang good. Pretty dang good. I did it. So, once again, from our head to our torso to the end of the pelvis, that's 4 heads. And then our legs, they overlap a bit with the pelvis, so it is another 4 heads, but you put it halfway at the pelvis. You started halfway at the pelvis, and that's how you get 7.5 heads tall. And then your if you line up heads, it is actually misaligned, because I did it wrong a little bit. If you line up your heads more at the pelvis, starting around here, if the top of your head aligns with the pelvis, your upper arm is 1 head length. From your elbow to your wrist, another head length. Your palm, about half of that length. And then the fingertips, the other half. You just realized you made yours 8 heads tall. Which step did you miss? Did you do... And I say this without any judgment. Dear chatter, did you miss this part? It's the hips. Yeah, it'll get you every time. And that's not necessarily wrong. As we said earlier, let me pull up the thingy. Let me put this on off to the side. Almost forgot the offset till I did it. So again, the an idealized average is 7.5. The idealistic is 8 heads. And the the shoulder span adjusts to match that. And rather than being like this middle, being like 1.5 heads, maybe, it's just a straight one. Who knows? But either way, we might be very used to doing 8 heads. We might have been incidentally doing 8 heads this entire time. Or you've been doing 6 heads. Who knows? But try and break down your stuff like this. Try to break a figure down into it where you can. Once again, a real person isn't always going to measure up like this. There will be differences along the way. But consider this guide as you go through. Do a few more skeletons on your own time. And when you're drawing real people, try to do that as well. Measure with heads. Measure roughly with the scale. Dear Chatter, more experienced artist says, I just kind of gave up on keeping track of heads in art after a while. After a while! it becomes second nature. I stopped doing that ages ago, except when I'm like, are my proportions are correct? Are they right? And that's when I fall back on drawing heads. Just drawing the length of the head. Time to collect human heads so you can measure people. That's right! Let's go be serial killers! Let's go back to the 18th century with this one! We're Jack the Ripper, baby! No. No. Experienced artist says it's good to review the fundamentals from time to time. So let me bring up something I've drawn in the last while, and we'll compare how well have I been doing in absorbing figures. Because sometimes I do it on purpose. Sometimes I do it on purpose that I'm not drawing the 7.5 head ideal. Sometimes I'm not drawing. I'm not drawing super ideals. I'm drawing the way I like to. But either way, let's see if we can figure this out. All right, so let's look at this drawing of my OC Shizuka. Let's measure her head. Let's see if that looks appropriate. Let's use pink. That'll contrast well. So her head. That's not a circle. That's not a circle. That's not a circle. It's polyline. We need an ellipse. We'll start ahead, roughly from her chin. Sorry, start from center. Let's draw that up. Her top of her head is somewhere around there. Needed it on another line. Needed it on another line. Another layer. Do this. Do that. Pull that over. And because she's stylized, she's a cartoon. It's slightly off. It's okay. Let's see. We didn't even do the female skeleton yet, but let's look at this. So, I tend to draw characters with a 6-head figure. Not always ideal. But, as we can see, I've immediately failed. But that doesn't make it look any less appealing, you know. Not everything needs to be about that. Let's just keep measuring it. What I tend to do is I just like measure in full. So we see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 heads. Chatter says, I mean, you know the rules, so you broke them effectively. Yes. This is a 7-head figure. I tell myself, that's good enough. She's a short character anyway. And she's meant to be a little bit young. She's on the youthful side, rather. So even though, I believe this head length, it's less than 1.5 heads tall. Tall, long. Even her hips are not necessarily following along. She's built different. But this is a good example of seeing, like, not everything works the way you think it does. You can break proportion after you understand it. All things considered, I think my character is stylized decently well. But this is not a... it's not a proportion figure. But this is why we revisit these things all of the time. Now let's do the female skeleton together. Let's discuss the differences in a female skeleton. On a female, there's 2 heads, 1.5 heads between the 2 great trochanthers.
There's 1.5 heads, about 1 and there. However, on a female, the shoulder.
Oh, you know, I might have actually been onto something. If the female shoulders are 1 1/3,
1 2/3 head heights.
1 2/3. Hold on, he's talking about shoulders here.
Measures 2 head units. The same for the width of the shoulders, including the deltoids.
Okay, so the shoulders on a male, about 2 heads long. You didn't discuss.
So this section of the body
hips.
fits into a nice square. However, on a female, the shoulders are.
But okay, on a female, let's start a new figure from scratch. Yeah, we'll start a new figure from scratch. I put the symbol of Mars to indicate they are a strong warrior. So we'll do another figure. Bunched all this layers up so it's easier to look at. I'll do another straight line. And we'll draw another oval for everything. My oval might be a little bit off. If I had made it a shape, maybe it'd make more sense. But let's take this head length and measure things again. This time without playing the video. We'll just go through with what we remember. With what we totally remember, rather. Right? Right? This is why we do things more than once. Because we don't remember them so easily if we don't. So, we'll measure this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 for the torso. We'll bring this out. Bring this halfway. This measures our lower body. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're drawing on paper, remember, use your form of measurement to keep your heads in track. And draw lightly. Draw lightly. Drawing lightly helps. So, we understand that the head length, rather than the neck length, based from how we did it before, and if we look closely, there's our chin. That's the full length of the head. And our nipples are about there. So that means our shoulders are about a third of the way down. Third of the way down from this one head length. Do that. Bam, bam, bam. And, as we just went over, on a female skeleton, on an effeminate skeleton, it'll be about 1 head length. Yeah, plus 2/3. So it wouldn't be measuring like that. Probably be measuring closer to, let me select these both. There we go. Probably closer to around here. 1 length. Maybe we do it like that. That's how we find it. So here is the length of our shoulders. Let's actually take a look here.
Are narrower, about 1 2/3 head heights. On a female, there is 1 1/2 heads between the 2 greater trochanters.
Right. So, back up the video a little bit more. And we got to figure out where everything else is. So again, from the chin, there's the nipples. And from the 4th head, these are our hips. We'll take these heads here, and remember, if we measure in length across, let's say somewhere in the center there, and there's our 2 heads, and we will copy these, make this about, and try to get it in the center, about here-ish, about somewhere around here-ish. It's 1 1/2 length. Try and measure 1 1/2 length for your hips, and hope that they're proportionate. And if they're not proportionate, if you can't find the center, just gotta really feel for it. Oh no, we're drawing on the wrong layer. Got that. Put it here. Oh. Oops. Oh my gosh, we messed it all up. I soiled it. I soiled it. I soiled it. There we go. We'll try and figure out where the middle is. Honestly, if you put these 2 heads together, 1 1/2 heads? Never mind. That's too tough for me to figure out. 1 1/2 heads. It's maybe somewhere around there. Anyway, that's the pelvis. Female hips. They're not always a trapezoid like that. We'll just draw like a box for now. And then have it right. Halfway through here, end of the ribs. Draw another box like this. No, I've not done it correctly. No, wait, I have done it correctly. The hips are ever so slightly proportionate to the shoulders, but again, they're longer. Just by, you know, that 2/3 versus 1/2. It looks close, but this would still be broader than this. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, I've drawn them about equal, so it's actually be a little bit... Oh no, am I drawing on the wrong layer again? I am drawing on the wrong layer again. Sorry, chat. We're all wasting precious time here. Oh, you hate to see it. You hate to see time wasted. Because the instructor's trying to figure out where the heck everything goes. Box. Hips. Two-thirds is broader than 1/2. But everything else is virtually the same. Everything else stays about the same. Your legs, go there. Thigh, 2 head lengths. Your femur, your foreleg, your whatever, goes to about halfway down or 2/3 down, whichever works for you. I'll move these over, make a copy of them and move them over. Do your best to read how long that is. Bring this over, bring that over, measure that, goes there. Make another set of heads for the arm length. The tippy top of the head aligns with the armpit. And that itself, oops, do that, bring that over. The upper arm, 1 arm length. The forearm, from the elbow, is about 1 head length. So we'll do that. That's how that aligns. There's your wrist, and it's roughly where that chin is. Your head, about half length. Fingers, about to the end. It's slightly over. Don't freak about it. And we'll do that on the other side. You measure from the outside to about the armpit. Instructor isn't perfect. There will be things that are a little bit off. Do another one of these. One of these. Your elbow, important thing to always remember, your elbow is separate from your torso. It is a separate connection. Do not count it as being inside of it. It is outside of it. We'll do 1 arm length. It's here. And then here, there's your wrist, your palm, halfway, and your fingertips covers the rest of that. Yes, the shoulder is not a part of your torso. It is not built into it. It is a separate limb, as you can see in the video. Look at that thing. Look at that. You can't see my cursor on the video. There it is. Yeah, you see it's separate. It's built separately. It's on the scapula. Scapula is not part of your ribcage. I said elbow before? My bad. I meant to say shoulder. But let's put it all together. I may have failed a little bit in demonstrating the difference with all of these heads. but let's turn. Oh my gosh! Oh, I drew on the wrong layer again. Oh my gosh! We drew on the wrong layer. It's a big oopsie. But I'm not redrawing all of that. Turn all that off. Turn all that off. Oh my gosh, I drew on the wrong layer for those as well. This is so messed up. We gotta find it. We gotta find the arm again. What the heck? What is that doing over there? Draw a new one over it? Just erase the ovals? I don't want to. I don't feel like it. Gosh! That layer took everything. That whole head took everything, dude. I'll fudge this just a little bit more. Just to make sure everything is appropriate. Where did the arm... Where? What? Bam, bam, right? Oh my gosh. I keep changing off of my lasso tool. No, actually, that stays there. Huh. Wait, where do the... where are these heads? I turned them off and then they're not there. The heads for the arm? Where are they stored? Where'd the metal head there go? Did I not... What? Oh, there it is. There we go. Goodness gracious. Female body ended up smaller because you used smaller heads. Lol. Yeah, it happens. It happens. But that's why we get better at these. We gotta keep trying. We gotta strive for certain ideals as we do these. Maybe we don't need to do the back right now, honestly. Too many ovals on too many layers. I agree. I agree. Keep in mind there's a lot less shrinkage. Not shrinkage, but the way the waist narrows from shoulders to hips on female skeletons, much smaller compared to male skeletons. Chatter has to leave. You got work. You'll check out the rest of the VOD later. Good. Just like the rest of you will, watching the VOD right now. Right? Staring. Anyway, that's halfway down. This is roughly where your nipples are, roughly where the everything is. Once again, I will provide this. Do everything in proportion to the head. Practice that. So we haven't even gotten to the gesture yet. Which is messed up. Can you believe we're this long in, we still aren't there? 1.5 hours. I said this would be shorter, but we got really wrapped up in how to do this. The sign of Venus to show she is a strong warrior. But when you boil it down, the male and female skeleton are not dramatically different. They are, but not dramatically. I mixed the signs up. Did I? I tried really hard to remember which was the No, you're messing with me. Goodness gracious. I'm giving you an F. I'm docking your points. Once again, the difference. Male skeletons, masculine skeletons. Let's start with masculine skeletons, because this can occur, and I don't mean to imply anything really, but and traditionally masculine skeletons, wider shoulders, narrower hips. Traditionally feminine skeletons, narrower shoulders, with slightly wider hips, and so the result is, as you see in the video, it looks like the hips are a bit bigger. Sorry, Did I give wrong information? 1 and 2/3. One. No. Okay. No. 1.5 is smaller than 1 and 2/3. Chat says the chatter in chat who is named. I'm not naming you actually. Hello, chatter. You haven't been here yet. We have been discussing proportion systems, specifically the 7.5 head proportion system. Just as a review of this section, every proportion system has its merits and its flaws. The 7.5 head idealized proportion system is just that. It is proportion based upon studying European skeletons. People will be made differently. People are made differently. This is not the system for everybody. This is not how everyone is made. It's an ideal. Just like the 8-head system. It's just an ideal. And the way you even produce 7.5 heads is you just you have to offset your head count a little bit, placing the head. Once you've got 4 heads down, you put another one. You start it halfway down. That's how you get 7 heads. 7.5 heads. For the next segment, let's take 5 for a second. Just to rest a bit and catch up a little bit. Rest your hands. Yeah, we're not doing the back today. You can practice the back on your own time. But the back has more to do with landmarks that we're not discussing right now. Our next segment will be on gesture drawing. On this one, we're not going to use a video resource. Let me turn off that. I'm going to be talking about how to see gesture with your own 2 eyes. not with someone else speaking over my shoulder for me. So that's that. Just collect my thoughts for a second here. If you still ever find yourself confused about proportions, refer to this. I'll leave a link to this. In fact, I'll get a link to this right now. Get a link to where you can get this poster. You don't have to buy it. You can go to this link. Right click, open image in new tab, and that's the full poster that you can get at any point. It covers Richet's method, the 7.5 heads tall, and the Hale method, which is 11.5 craniums. And then there's the Loomis method, which is 8 heads tall, which is an idealized proportion that you see in comics everywhere. Or fashion models. Fashion models are usually 8 heads tall. Just give me a sec to rest my voice. I checked Discord. I was sent an Eric Zoolander GIF. Is that his name? Eric? I don't remember, actually. He's just Zoolander. This was sent an hour ago when I made the Zoolander joke. Derek Zoolander. I was close. Eric? Derek? Derek Zoolander does sound more posh in some way. So, now we're going to be focusing on gesture. Let's change the currently on. So you recall last week man, stream's been going for almost 2 hours. I'll have you know, uh, university courses, college figure drawing courses go for 3 hours, and it's usually like broken up with. It gets more to the point by you having a lecture section and a drawing section. But I shuffled in half an hour of homework review, so that kind of made it a bit longer. Anyway, we'll be focusing on gesture next. And you'll recall last week we talked about CSI lines, or for some of you CIS lines, whatever's funnier, I guess. And we use CSI lines because this is what makes our lines more natural. We can create more confident looking lines, especially lines of gesture, if we use lines like these. If we get better at being able to draw from our shoulder to draw these sort of lines. And so right now, we're going to use CSI lines to draw figures in motion. So we just figured out proportion. Now we're going to figure out how to draw full bodies using only lines. So you can use proportion to while you're doing figure drawing. But for these next set of figure drawings, I want you to not be too concerned about it. Keep it in the back of your mind while you go along. But we're gonna go back to we're gonna open the video capture again because we need that. Don't draw strictly in proportion. Keep it in your mind. Keep it in the back of your mind. That we will be using it eventually. But for now, let's go to Gesture Draw Party. Gesture Draw Party. We're gonna mute it. For our first gesture drawing, it'll be a demonstration. I'm gonna give you a demonstration first. And then, you. This is going to count as your daily figure drawing, says more experienced artist in chat. I'll demonstrate it first for anyone who doesn't fully get it. So let's get a decent look at this. We're not doing the timer, but I'm going to show you what I do to see motion in a pose. So let's look at this. Look at this guy, the way he's posing. We're going to look to see how motion travels through his body. I'm not pulling up the video from last week. I'm going to explain it myself. But just looking at what this guy is doing, we can see there is a line of action traveling from the center of his body into the areas that keep his whole body supported. That back leg, it flows upwards, and there's another leg. Of course there's another leg. But that other leg holds him steady. And I'm drawing sketchy. This is a little bit sketchy. It'll happen. I'm drawing several lines to show what I'm doing because you can't see my arm. But that's how I start a figure drawing. We find the boldest line of action that is keeping the figure supported, and then we can draw another that helps keep that support. And it's not always going to be the legs. It's not always going to be the legs. In this case, it is. But notice that I used a C-curve and a straight, and another C-curve to establish where this gesture is. And I'm not fully doing things in proportion. That's not what the point of a gesture drawing is. But you can use it to supplement how some things were working. And we're working in, again, the building blocks of the body. Triangles, squares, circles. If I wanted to draw this more proportionately, I would have drawn these lines to represent the flow of the shoulders and the hips. In fact, that is one of the first things you ought to do when you're doing that. Sorry, skip that out. So we'll take it from the top one more time. I see the line of action. This is how the body keeps itself supported. Here's the shoulders. Here's the hips. That's how I see this action keeping itself steady. And it's not proportional. That's okay. We'll draw. This is a more involved figure, more involved gesture when I include the shoulders and the hips. You don't have to for some of these, but you can if you want to. I'm using a straight because that's how that leg keeps itself up. And there is gesture. There is gesture, there is motion in that foreleg, then that shin. That keeps it grounded. So that's why I use a curve right there to keep it held up. I might even do... Is it this? No. It's like this. I had it right the first time around. I'll use a triangle to represent the foot. I'll use a straight and being held up by a curve, a C line. And it's not accurate. It's not anatomically accurate. That's not what we're shooting for in gesture. Once again, we're trying to find motion. You're trying to see what kind of C, S, or I line helps you understand where the motion is. So, for his arms, these are very straight looking arms, but if we exaggerate what we are seeing, you might be able to see a slight curve. Same here. His arm is being bent towards us. So there's absolutely at least 2 straights going through here. I'm going to draw some more straights, triangles to represent the hands, like that. And if you have time, there's a circle for the head. And on longer gestures, if you have the time, try to figure out where the bean is. We've got motion being expressed throughout this whole thing. And that's how I do gesture drawings. That's what you can do. So we'll go on to another gesture right here. I'll demonstrate one more time. This next pose might not be... good. He did a proper one. I'll demonstrate one more time. I want you to follow along with me as we find the gesture here. So, as you can see, this guy, he's craning. He is craning. His back is turned. And you see where the support for his body is going. You can see a C curve traveling from his head to his thigh. But it doesn't necessarily go all the way down. We see right there, it stops. We can put another curve. And that's that. And let's try and see where the shoulders are, where the hips are. Let's draw another line. We're expressing gesture entirely through line. We're not adding shape whatsoever into these. And you'll recall from the video, Proko said the shape of a calf, the shape of the shin, the way this bone forms, has a lot of motion. So try and look for that as you go through these limbs. And we see that his arm, it cradles. It's being made to cradle. There's a slight curve the way this arm comes out, but there's a straight in how this arm rests against the leg. You got his head. We can't see how that other arm goes around, but we can see that it's bending. And there's another straight or another curve to show that it's going like that. And then maybe we top it off with a bean. Maybe even a more exaggerated bean than that. And it'll be messy. You can have messy gesture line. You can have messy gesture drawing. Highly encourage when you're doing, like, especially short poses, express it in as few lines as possible. And keep in mind the rhythm to the body. There is a rhythm all throughout a body. Where there is a bump, there's often a straight. A bump, a straight. And look at what I've done here. This is just how the body itself is arranged to look. Your chest puffs out, your butt sticks out. Think about that kind of rhythm. Bump, straight. bump, straight. So we're going to do more gesture drawing. Are you ready? Work alongside me and do more. And use lines. Use lines. We're not drawing stick figures. We're drawing gesture drawings. Use CSI lines. Use triangles for hands, feet, if you want. Circle for the head. And maybe draw a bean, if you have time, afterwards. So, I believe there is a series of like 5 1-minute poses. Now there's only 3. But we'll roll with it. So, let's see the next set of poses to do. And there you go. Seeing a C curve. We'll draw the pelvis. The shoulders are a bit of a C curve as well. Follow the path through the motion, whichever way is most, whichever way makes the most sense for you. Just so long as you're establishing that there is a sense of motion. Bam. And let's put a bean into that. And that's all that goes into these quicker gesture drawings. You don't have to think too hard about it. Well, maybe you do have to think a bit hard about it until you're used to it. Alright, he's moving on to the next pose. Sorry that he's just like in the corner. It's like really small. I hope you're okay with this. If you need it to be bigger, I can make it bigger. Alright, next pose. There's a C curve. Often there's a C curve, not always, but often there is. There's a long straight going through that right there. We can use more straights for that other arm. A straight for his hips because that keeps him balanced, and more straights. Or you can do a curve. You can see that as a curve when you exaggerate the motion. Then we'll do a bean. And the head. If you really want to be cheeky and suggest the chin, put a little right angle right there. Alright, he's moving on to the next pose. So this one, there isn't necessarily a line of action following from his torso to the legs. The torso itself carries the C curve. We'll draw the shoulders and the hips. The torso is in a stable position, but the legs carry most of the support. And I accidentally Control Z'd. Try not to Control Z if you're on digital. That's my fault. It is reflexive for me. Straights. There's a lot of straights. You can find some curves. This is hella straight. Pardon my French, but it is very straight, this arm. Alright, and that's a minute up. Alright, he's moving on to a 2-minute pose. Take the time to really analyze the next pose that he does. We're going to be doing more of this. And try to refine it. Use lines if you want to suggest more about his body figure. And let's go from here. This is a more challenging pose. because there's a lot of foreshortening involved. But you can still find motion. Sometimes it helps to start with the shoulders, then you move into the hips. Once again, this torso, very stable. Can't exactly follow a line of action down through there. You could, if you tried harder. If you tried hard enough. I could see one that goes like this, but I see it more like this. Once again, do not Control Z. Use that eraser. Erase quick and fast if you want to get it in before time is up. But gestures are about just rolling with your mistakes. Ideally, you're not doing any sort of erasing, because gesture drawings are a warm-up, effectively. You can get so many done, and it teaches you to roll with mistakes. We haven't gone over how to shape the body yet, but just know, in gesture drawing, you can just keep using CSI lines. You can just keep using the principle of a bump and a straight on the other side to shape how limbs look, how your necks can look, how arms can look, even when they're being foreshortened. You can express this arm, this foreshortened arm, using curve lines. And this isn't accurate necessarily to how he looks. It's just movement. All right, that's a 2-minute pose. We'll do one more 2-minute pose. All right. On those shorter poses, they can tend to get more wild because they don't have to hold the pose as long. But for a 2-minute pose, he's picking more stable poses to do, which allows you to be a little more exact with how you're doing things. I like to draw lines sometimes for the joints, because it just helps to figure out like where it is without necessarily drawing a circle. Sometimes it's still necessary, because you can see right here, the knee is getting a little bit lost behind each other. I messed up a little bit with my figure drawing. His arm is not as stretched as it could be, and that's because I hit the edge of the canvas. That's why you gotta work with a bigger canvas, a bigger space than you let yourself work with to draw more. I see in chat, you're still Control Z as a habit. What I'm doing, my hand's off the keyboard. My hand is off the keyboard, it's only rising up, and then I realize it's consciously rising up to do a Control Z. And you always make yours too big. Yeah, that's a troubling habit to get over. Alright, what's the next one? It's another 2-minute pose. Let's pause there for a second. How did your gestures come out? Do you like them? Do you think you understand where to see motion just a bit more? It's okay if you don't, because that just means you have to do more. But tell me, chat. Tell me how you felt. Bad, no, and yes. You don't like them. Sorry, what was the sequence of questions I asked again? Did you like it? Did they come out well? And do you think you can see motion better? I believe that was it. Chatter says, I like doing gesture drawing on paper because it takes the ability to Control Z out of your hands. True and real, and this is why I say if you're going to do this workshop, it's good to draw along on physical media. They didn't come out well, but you can see the motion. A separate chatter says, good, 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 good. And you can just refine it more. Don't take the way I do things as like a sign of like, that's the gold standard, because you're just starting. You're just starting, and you'll figure things out. And maybe you're not just starting. Maybe you're just now starting to see where these things go. It's okay. Gesture drawing can be messy. These CSI curves are a good tool. Good. Good, 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 good. You just can't get them in a way that you're satisfied with. You'll find it. You'll find it eventually, or you'll learn to loosen up, and you'll understand what really like goes into making good gesture drawing. Rather, how to be less less nitpicky about how all things look. So, now that we've done that, I'd like us to do something a little bit scary. You just never like your shapes. Well, that's why I say use CSI lines to guide your bodies. You can draw better ovals. You don't even need to draw with structure. I'm not asking you to do that. You did your best to, and that's all I'm asking you to. You'll get better over time. Trust in yourself, believe in yourself. So, we're going to do something slightly scary now. We're going to try and analyze this figure and draw him proportionately. So we're going to skip over to one of the 5-minute poses, which is at the very end. Ooh, he makes it hard. Not good. We need a better pose than that. We need one that's sitting more straight on. We're gonna need, hopefully, lineofaction.com. Only covered model. No, we'll do that. All genders, adult. We're gonna do a 5-minute drawing. Goodbye, big fun to draw man. Honestly, buff people are really fun to draw in my opinion, because their bodies are literally so sculpted and easy to read. That's beside the point. Let's look for something that works here. Sorry, I'm gonna be a little bit picky, trying to find one that works for what we need. We didn't cover how to draw someone from behind. Draw a younger from Yu Yu Hakusho. Do you want this one? Can't see the figure that well. Alright. Let's do a little bit of proportionate figure drawing. Use the resource that you just drew, or better yet, I'll put this one on screen. We'll make this slightly bigger. No, we'll leave it at that size. But I personally am going to add image 7, browse. I don't like that OBS always starts in the OBS Studios folder. You didn't save that? Oh, that's okay. That's why I was like, well, some people probably didn't save it. They probably just immediately erased it, which is okay. Because why would you ever save it when you know I'm gonna put this resource on screen, available for download, but I want you to be able to call upon it yourself. Once again, the 7.5 head figure. We will bring things down to roughly that. Bam. Share this up. So we'll take 5 minutes to draw this person roughly in proportion. And I wish I could get this a little bit closer. Maybe I can make this window. This window, thank you, bigger. And I'll do that. Closer. Closer. I want this to be more focused on screen for you. All you dear viewers. Is that big enough to see? To really work with? It's going to obscure a lot of my view, but it's okay. We'll check in on how I do after the fact. So, let's try and break this figure down into proportion. We'll give you 5 minutes to lightly see the gesture, but then try to measure it using the head method. All right. So you've got 5 minutes. Good luck with it. So you can find the center of the spine. That will help you figure out where that is on the figure. You can roughly draw. This is where we include a little bit of gesture drawing just to figure out like how is this body posed, but then you're going to have to use the head method to refine the proportions of what you're drawing. So use a little bit of CSI lines to draw a rough gesture, then pull it back and refine it using the head method. Draw an oval. If you see my layer count expanding, it's because I'm measuring. Your neck is about 1/3 of the way down, I believe. Or about halfway. No, that's... yeah. This might be a case where the head method fails on the arms because they're not just like plainly outstretched. So in this case, fall back on the method listed on the right, where it's just that the upper arm is about as long as the forearm and hand included. Can't see this, but I messed up. I drew the arms and rather the legs way too long. This person might not even be like 7.5 heads tall. They might be closer to 8 heads tall because they're a model. But who knows? Use shapes that are appropriate for the parts of the body that you're trying to draw. yes, the head method absolutely fails here because we can't use it to measure the shoulders and the hips very well. But I want you to try your best. Do your best to see how these things seem to be working. Three, two, one. Oops. Let's head back. All right. Time. How'd you do? It's okay if it's not accurate. It's okay if it's not 100% accurate. Here's how. Here's how I did. Remember, I've been at this for a really, really long time, so I can intuit some things better than some people here in stream. You're still missing an arm, says the more experienced chatter. It happens. It happens. Pencil down. Pencil down. Yes. So, as stated before, this method falls apart when anyone's doing anything but looking straight on. But this is the best image I could find immediately. So this is what we're working with. Let's examine my head measurement as best as we can. So we got 1, 2, oops, 2, nope, nope, nope. It's in here somewhere. 2, 3, 4. So the torso can be roughly measured into 4 heads. In fact, my pelvis could probably be a little bit lower than this. So that's that. Let's measure arms, as I said. Well, let's measure the waist. The waist and the shoulders. Once again, this method fell apart when we look at things in perspective. Chatter says, how come the other chatter gets to be the more experienced artist in chat? Because they went to college. They went to college. They know how to do these things. And once again, this method, it's hard to do. From any other point but looking straight on. But you can still kind of try. If you overlap things, you can kind of see how to measure it. A female skeleton, the shoulder span is about 1 2/3 of the head length. And the hips are about 1.5. So you're really just kind of guessing. You're using, if you're using the sight method, do your best with your thumb. One chatter asks, how come you don't get a nickname? Anyway, because it's just easier to. Everyone else gets chatter. Only one other person gets experience, because it's important to distinguish who is more experienced in the chat. In my opinion, it's helpful for the learning to understand that someone who does art more often, who understands more, might also be struggling, in my opinion. Let's measure the arms. It's in here somewhere. I tried my best. Even when I say, try measuring the arms starting towards the armpit. If you align them starting at the armpit, even then, the head that I drew is not perfect for it. So maybe it could have used more work. But these fall apart. It's hard to really rely on it. But that's when I fall back on the other method of just make sure your upper arm about as long as this. And it's slightly off. It happens. Another way to make sure you've done it correctly, if you drew a bean, understand the lowest part of the bean, that's the end of your ribs. And your elbow is always aligned to the end of your ribs. So you can do that to try and keep things on track rather. That's about it for measuring. Where are the legs? I'm trying to get hungry. So I'd like to wrap up stream soon. But from the middle of the pelvis, we've got legs that are about 4 heads in length. And I drew the ankles from the farthest most one, about halfway through. And how do you figure out the other side that is clearly in perspective? You just kind of gotta compare. You gotta see things like relative to another. You gotta look at the image. So I didn't see this appropriately. I thought the gesture of the model's leg stuck out a bit more than it did in reality. So the angle of the knee is actually more like this. Maybe a little bit more like this. So this is self-critique for myself. It should be brought in a bit more. That way you can see more of the back of this foot, which you can express. You can express the foot as a cube, a little trapezoid with a pyramid, and ideally with a little bit cut off because it looks better that way. But if I had done that, then it would have been able to read a bit more clearly. Or accurately, whichever. But that's it. That's this part of the exercise done, or this class. We're about ready to wrap. I might have cut this as long as last session. Oops. But how do you feel? Do you think using these tools in hand you'll be able to grasp gesture and proportion? I hope you do. Let's wrap things up. Yam? Good. So, to summarize things again, let's take these away. If you still wanted these to finish drawing, you're not getting it anymore. Summarize. 7.5 head proportion. Male and female skeleton. Biggest difference. Male skeletons, wider shoulder span, narrower hips. Females, 1 2/3 shoulder span, 1.5 hip span. Narrower shoulders, relatively longer looking hips. This is about 1.5 as well. So I believe this is a bit tighter. Either way, keep this proportion system in mind. How to measure things out. And then gesture. Ooh, that gesture folder is packed full of everything. Start from here. Clump that up. Gesture is about using CSI lines to see where your straight actions are, where your bumpy actions are, what can be curved. And, whoa, look at this. I said, I can't really see a line of action, pardon me, that can go through here. I ended it here, and then I did this line separately. But look at that. It was an S all along. Isn't that funny? When you're doing gesture, use CSI lines to find rhythms in which the body bends and is straight in concert with each other. Bam, bam, bam. You notice the S? Good chatter. Good observant eye. On shorter figure drawings, you don't need to draw everything. You don't need to draw, lines indicating the body parts. You can keep it as simple as stick figures. But this isn't a stick figure. This is more involved than a stick figure. draw the line of the shoulder and the pelvis, and then have your arms and legs branch out from the ends of that. And if you have the time, draw a bean, draw a head. And if you really, really want to have something good to indicate where the chin is, the motions of it, put a right angle for where the chin should be, and so forth. So there's our 7.5 heads figure. We'll be analyzing, well, you'll be analyzing that a bit more for your homework. Opening my outline real quick. Homework. It's in pink. I don't want pink. Homework. So, I want you to do 5 gestural figures. Using CSI lines. Do a video from Gesture Draw Party. Because this is honestly one of the easiest ways you could do this. And then I want you to do 2 bodies in proportion using the head method, using the 7.5 head method. Do not use photos or references from models that are in too much perspective. I want you to be able to left align that. I want you to be able to break a figure down in proportion. And I want you to be able to see the motion in a body. Is there a space here? Yes, there was. No? No, it's center line. It just didn't look like that at first. Literally just do what we've been doing here. So, that is about it for today. Hope this was helpful. And because the poll that I put out last week was in support for, at the very least, ping Discord. I put together a very, very, very bare bones server for now. I'll fix it up some more. This server is not for chatting. The server is not for chatting. It is just for pings because I didn't use. I did. What? Alright, I'm going to disable that streamer mode on Discord for now. It's not for talking. I don't really want to have a chatting community. I'll fix it up. I'll make a homework channel that people can send images to. I'll put up a channel for posts and resources that are in use. It's basically just all archives. So if you want to join that and be abreast of pings and other stuff related to the art that I post and the resources that I have on hand, feel free to join that. Otherwise, once again, that does it. Hope this was all helpful. Again, this ran a bit longer than I intended it to, but I hope 2.5 hours of figuring out gesture and proportion will help you in the long run. Thanks for stopping by, for working alongside me, if you did. And I put this here. Remember to like, comment, subscribe to the VOD. If you like the VOD, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow me on twitch.tv/rivrider, and follow me on other social medias if you want to stay afoot of all the other posts and going-ons of what I do. Professor needs a timer. Professor does need a timer. His timer is looking at OBS and seeing how long he's been live, and then when he is called to eat dinner, you might have picked up that someone screamed, "Eat!" About half an hour ago, maybe more. I'm starving. So, thanks for coming by. Hope this was all helpful. And I'll see you again on Thursday. Do your homework. We'll be talking about the 11.5 head method next week. And we'll be going into the RoboBean. That is the beginning of the manicization process. So, finally learning how to draw people. Have a good one. Good evening. Wherever your time zone is. Bye!